signed foreperson. As to the charge of
Listen, even still to this day, when I look at this clip and you watch Casey Anthony, because she was always very emotionless during her trial, and I'm not kidding you all. Like, during her trial, during that time, there was something going on in my life, but I was home a little bit more than, there was the whole beginning to the whole working from home, right? And when I tell you that I literally watched every day of this trial, I watched every day of this whole situation from the very first moment that it happened. The whole 30 days that we went, we went months not knowing where Caylee was. Then she was finally found about a mile from the family home. What I believe happened is I do believe that Caylee Anthony drowned. I do think that she did drown in that pool. The question is, what is all the cover up that happened after? Was there some neglect on Casey Anthony's part? And then of course, literally, I have to preface and say this. It does sort of feel like Casey Anthony is trying to come out and sort of change the narrative. And truth be told, Casey Anthony can never be tried for murder again. It's called double jeopardy.
Aggravated manslaughter of a child. Verdict is to count 3. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty. So say we all, dated at Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of providing false information to a law enforcement officer, verdict as to count 4. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of providing false information to a law enforcement officer as charged in the indictment. So say we all, dated Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of providing false information to a law enforcement officer, verdict is to count 5. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of providing false information to a law enforcement officer as charged in the indictment. So say we all, dated Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of providing false information to a law enforcement officer, verdict is to count 6. We, the jury, find the defendant We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of providing false information to a law enforcement officer as charged in the indictment. So say we all, dated Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of providing false information to a law enforcement officer, verdict is to count 7. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of providing false information to a law enforcement officer as charged in the indictment. So say we all, dated Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson.
Okay. Will counsel and the defendant approach the podium? Not all the counsel, but just Representative Sample.
Man, when that day happened, baby, when that day happened, unbelievable, right? Unbelievable that people were saying things like, how could Florida mess this up like so badly? How could Florida, what is going on with the people in Florida? I mean, seriously, people was like, what is going on? And we can't forget about you remember the when she took the police and did that whole charade, right? And told them that she still worked at Disney or whatnot, and literally even took them into the building before having to just stop and admit and say, hey, yeah, I don't work here. The whole timeline with Casey Anthony was completely just fucked. The whole thing. And she lies so much. So no, I don't believe that her father was molesting her. It's hard to believe anything that Casey Anthony says. And you gotta wonder, man, how her parents must be feeling right about now. I'm kind of curious. Honestly. 11 years, guys. 11 years. And in just a matter of a few hours, we'll be able to see Casey Anthony in the flesh. Something that many, many, many people have wanted for years. For years. She is a liar. And I have to put this out there. How much money is Casey Anthony making on this interview? Because look, there's no way she's doing this for free. There's just no way. And they can call it whatever. They can say that, you know, they gave her money because they used her photo or her image or her likeness or whatever story they need to tell themselves. But there's no question in my mind that they paid Casey Anthony to do this interview. Because, like, probably every news organization in the world wanted that interview. So you damn right they paid for it. I'm curious how much. I'm not sure if they're even obligated to even have to tell us, but I am curious about that. Yeah.
Casey interview, ABC marker.
Look how she's
sausage.
fixing her hair, making sure her teeth are good.
Why talk to me now when you're not getting creative control?
That was Casey Anthony, who was acquitted of murdering her daughter Caylee back in 2011,
Hold on, I thought
sitting
this
for her
was...
first interview on TV
Hold on
about
a second,
the case.
guys.
I'm Anjanette Levy, and welcome to this latest edition of Law.
I like Law and Crime Sidebar, actually. I watch that channel a lot, but I thought that was an actual clip. I didn't know she was podcasting that, so I don't want to show that. I want to stick strictly to the news clips only. But I do want to take this little trip down memory lane a little bit. And I'm more so kind of curious, you know, I'm trying to find a particular clip that particularly talked about the first, month of the
Casey Anthony knows that much of the world believes that she killed her 2-year-old daughter, Caylee. But in an interview with the Associated Press, she insists she does not know how the last hours of the toddler's life unfolded. Almost 9 years after little Caylee's death and 6 years after her mother, Casey Anthony, was controversially acquitted of her murder and other charges of harming her daughter, Anthony is breaking her silence in a series of exclusive interviews